Okay, let's talk about the exam only fees. Let's talk about all the other fees that might be involved with moving that container to the CES, because those fees that you see right there may not be the only fees that you are required to pay in an intensive exam.
Absolutely. So what will happen is usually sometimes the port will arrange the move themselves to the CES, and then they'll arrange the move back from the CES back to the port. In those situations, what will usually happen is you will get a kind of an all-in-one bill. It might break down the charges by, this is what you paid the trucker, this is what you paid the laborers at the CES. But oftentimes we will just get a bill that says exam, $1,700. And we would have to fight to get that broken down into what the individual parts are. The fees, so let's say if you were responsible for getting the container to the exam site, or your broker or your forwarder, whoever you elect to do that, if that, depending on the port, is what happens, your broker or your forwarder will hire a trucker to dray that container to the exam site. So you'll have a dray of, $400 or $500, depending on your port, depending on your trucker. You will have fees to unload that container, so labor to unload the container. You will likely have storage with that CES, because if it's there for a long time, they're not just letting you take up space in their warehouse for free. And you will have fees for reloading the container, and then you will have a fee for draying that container back to the port. So that's just the exam itself. You can also potentially have what's called detention. Per diem is what it used to be called. The steamship lines have mostly updated their terms. They call it detention now. You can start actually accruing per diem or detention because that container has been out from the port for so long on that exam. So just like if you have a container delivered direct from the port to your door and you let it sit in your door for a week and a half, you're probably going to have a couple of days of per diem or detention. The same thing applies here, even though it went to a CES and it wasn't actually available for you to unload. So you can have hundreds of dollars in per diem or detention, and that has to be paid before they'll even release the container sometimes. It's one of the ugly sides of these exams. I think I can count on one hand out of all the times that I've done an exam like this that I've ever been able to convince someone to waive any part of those fees, and usually it was because the steamship line screwed something up. If everything went as planned, they're probably not budging on that.
Hey, Caleb, I've got a couple other questions. When they're taking those products out of the container, if they are perishable or require refrigeration,